Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Board meeting of Thursday, July 28th. We have a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention. This meeting is being televised live on Charter Channel 180 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and will rebroadcast every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. and every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. and is available by video on demand on the county website. Now would be a good time to turn off the cell phones and laptops. If you wish to speak tonight, you will need to fill out a public speaking speaker card. We're going to allot 10 minutes for those in favor of the case, and we're going to allot 10 minutes for those in opposition of the case. That is shared for everyone who wants to speak, so if 10 people wish to speak, they all share the 10-minute slot and so forth. Please address the board when you come up and not the audience when you come to speak. At this time, we'll have Delandra Nelson give us the invocation and pledge.
Yes. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We ask that you be with us, be with our decisions that we make. We ask that it be the best for this county. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is now called to order. This time, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to revise the agenda, reflecting, based on the City of Stockbridge request, that we hear case RZ 1620 prior to RZ 16-9. RZ 1620 will be heard first, and RZ 1619 heard second. I'd also like to make a request, make a motion based on the applicants to remove RZ 1617, RZ 1618, and Comp AM 1603 and Comp AM 1604.
I have a motion for revision of the agenda. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, if we could please call the first case.
Madam Chair, just
For
the
sorry,
record,
that's right,
a couple of
housekeeping.
staff comments. The cases that are no longer on the agenda tonight, RZ 1618, case number COMP AM 16-04, CU 16-06, and COMP-AM 16-16-03. Those items were withdrawn per the applicant's request. And case number RZ 1617, that item was tabled by the applicant per their request and will be heard at the September ZAB meeting.
Thank you. Any other housekeeping items from staff? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we will go ahead and call the case, first case.
Case number RZ-16-20-S. At the request of the City of Stockbridge pursuant to the Zoning Code Section 3-17-318, 3 parcels are proposed for reversion. The 3 parcels proposed for reversion are known now or formerly as 112 Old Conyers Road, 118 Old Conyers Road, and 124 Old Conyers Road, located in land lot 68 of the 12th District. The property consists of 10.98 plus or minus acres, and the proposal is to revert to a previous or otherwise appropriate zoning. These parcels or this property is located in the City of Stockbridge and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisil.
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. The request before you tonight is for a piece of property that's very close to the corner of East Atlanta Road and Old Conyers Road. And so if you'll take a look in your exhibit books, the tax map, this is East Atlanta, this is Old Conyers, the Publix shopping center is here, and the parcels that are hatched in the green dashes, that's our subject property that we're talking about tonight. So that subject property was rezoned by the Stockbridge City Council on January the 8th, 2007, from RA Residential Agricultural to C2 General Commercial for the purpose of an event center, and it's subject to a development agreement. Well, since 2007, the subject property has not been developed for that purpose, and indeed, it has maintained its previous use for residences since that time. The City of Stockbridge Code states that the City Council can consider reverting a property back to a previous zoning designation if substantial progression has not occurred within 12 months. And obviously, that is the case. And so, according to the City of Stockbridge Code, the subject property before you tonight is for your recommendation on whether it should actually be reverted or not. So, according to the staff report, initially, staff recommended reversion of 2 of the parcels because a third parcel is also coming before you tonight, which will be our next hearing, for a request for rezoning from the current C2 to C3. But in conversation with the City of Stockbridge Community Development and Administrative Director, staff would like to change our recommendation, and what we would like to recommend is that all 3 of these parcels be reverted back to the original zoning of RA. And that will just be a clean slate, and then when we hear the next case, it would be just for that one parcel, and we can consider that clean to go from RA to C3. And so staff's recommendation is for reversion of all 3 of these parcels.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Do any of the board members have any questions for staff at this time? Ms. Green. Ms. Green.
A is the significance of just having the clean slate for all 3 properties. So where they all become RA, and then we hear the next case where one of the parcels, I think it's 112, will ask to go from RA to then C3.
Right. We felt that it would be better to have a clean slate instead of having a resolution by the City Council that would have to call out particularly that 118 and 128 by themselves would be reverted, but not 112. And they're similarly situated, and what's the justification? It would just be more of a clean decision if we could just get back to RA and then move forward with the single parcel and treat all 3 of these similarly situated parcels the same.
Can you point to 112
Yes.
for me, please?
Yes, so 112 has the frontage
Okay.
here. You've got 118 in the back here, and you've got 124 on the corner of Collier and Old Conyers.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else on the board have any questions for Stacy?
Stacey, I have a question. How does this reflect 112 if it's converted back? Do you still have the same usage with 112 if these other 2 convert back?
It's my understanding that all 3 of these parcels are currently being used as single-family residences. And we may be able to get more information from the applicant in the next hearing, whether that is indeed the case. All 3 of these parcels are bound by a development agreement, and it's my understanding that if you take any of these parcels away, that the remaining parcels will not be able to fulfill the development agreement by themselves.
Okay.
I have a question then. So, if you change them all back to RA and only one is going to be asked to be changed, how does that, maybe I just missed what you said, how does that affect the other 2 properties if they were going to be RA? I mean,
It wouldn't affect their current use because right now they're being used for a single-family residential use. So the property owner will not be detrimentally affected as for their current use. And in fact, Their current use right now is a legal non-conforming use. They're grandfathered in, so there's a little bit of liability there in the case of damage. So they can be maintained and repaired, but if they're damaged more than 50%, they can't be rebuilt for a single-family residence. So if the intent of the property owners is to maintain a single-family use, it would benefit them, I believe, to go back to RA.
So on property, is it 118?
In the back, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, in the back. I guess they have access to their property?
There is a shared access with 112. And I apologize, I don't have
Okay, I just-
something that shows that access clearly.
That's fine, I just wanted to make sure they had that access. Even if 112 were developed, they would still have that access?
Yes, yes, because they have at least a prescriptive easement to access their property in the back. That access would not be able to be removed. But you bring up a great point because 118 is a landlocked piece of property.
Okay.
Is that the barbecue place? Right.
I'm not sure of specific history, but we could certainly ask the applicant in the next hearing.
So Stacy, basically the applicant has to come back and request a C3 for 118 and 124.
And the next hearing is just for 112.
Right.
For 118 and 124, if they wish to develop, if they're reverted back to RA, and then they choose to develop in the future for something more than what's permitted in RA, they would indeed have to rezone.
Okay.
And if the proposed use at that time requires a C3, they would have to request a C3.
Okay. Now, we know that they are requesting a reversion from C2 to a C3. We know that. So in order for them to be able to use it as a C3, they're going to have to come back for 118 and 124, correct?
And let me just say that I became involved in this request having had a conversation with the applicant for 112. And at that time, it was related to me that the applicant, which we'll hear in the next hearing, wished to be approved for a bed and breakfast using the existing home and really not redeveloping the property in any substantial way. The problem is that 112, together with the other two parcels, were bound by a development agreement. And if they rezoned the remaining two parcels, 118 and 124, would not be able to fulfill the development agreement by themselves. And so the city at that point wanted to treat those remaining two parcels. And it's coming before you tonight. The city is actually initiating this reversion for all three to get us back to a clean slate. And then in the next hearing, we can move forward with a rezoning request for the one parcel, 112, to rezone to C3 to accommodate the bed and breakfast as a type of hotel, which requires C3.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff regarding this case?
I have an additional question.
Ms. Green?
So going back to RA, does that void the development agreement?
It's my understanding that it does.
Okay. The pieces.
And
They
as
are
a
together
disclaimer,
now.
I'm not a lawyer, but it's my understanding that their use as an event center, which was the purpose for rezoning them back on January the 8th, 2007, was limited by the development agreement. And if that zoning goes away, then there's no way to fulfill the development agreement. But that's an excellent question, and I've been told that that is the case.
I see.
But at any time, if it's discovered that that is not the case, then that needs to be treated separately.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, will we have the city of Stockbridge come up on this case?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, if the applicant could please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Dale Hall. I'm the Administration and Community Services Director for the City of Stockbridge. Thank you, Board and Chair, for having me speak this evening. And I want to also thank Dante and his staff, specifically Stacy, for helping me out with this. This came to light when the applicant in the next case was coming forward and wanted to develop to do similar to what this development agreement is presently stated, but to move forward with what that individual wanted, it would also bind the other two parcels to this agreement that we had in place. So to clean the slate, as the term that was used, and to allow the individuals in the back two parcels to remain being residential and live in those parcels, we believed, in speaking with our legal counsel, that the best way to do this, because the development agreement was from a fourth party that's no longer involved with this ownership transaction, was to revert these back to its original state, which would make the development agreement null and void, and then move forward with what the applicant would want to do with the remaining first front parcel. And I'd be more than happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Do any of the board members have any questions for Representative City of Stockbridge? They have no questions. You may be seated.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This time we're going to call for those who want to speak in favor of the case. You'll have 10 minutes to come and speak in favor of the case. Okay, do I see anybody coming up to speak in favor? All right, and now we're going to allow 10 minutes for those to speak in opposition of this case. Okay, don't have anybody. All right, I'm going to ask the applicant to please come forward one more time. Just in case, while we're asking for public speaking, maybe one more question. Does anyone have any questions for the City of Stockbridge? Okay, you may be seated. Okay, if we can, yes, there you go. Could you please call the case?
Case number RZ-16-20-S. At the request of the City of Stockbridge pursuant to the zoning code section 3-17-318, three parcels are proposed for reversion. The three parcels proposed for reversion are known now or formerly as 112 Old Conyers Road, 118 Old Conyers Road, and 124 Conyers Road, located in land lot 68 of the 12th District. The property consists of 10.98 plus or minus acres, and the proposal is to revert to a previous or otherwise appropriate zoning. The property is located in the City of Stockbridge and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rootsill.
Do you have a motion for this case?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve case RZ 1620S with the amended recommendations as made by staff to include 112 in that reversion to RA.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Head. Any discussion? All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, next case, please.
Case number RZ-16-19-S. Marvin Johnson of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for property located at 112 Old Conyers Road in land lot 68 of the 12th District. The property consists of 3.734 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a bed and breakfast. The property is located in the City of Stockbridge and will be presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rootsill.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Board members, the case before you at this time is for the front parcel known as 112 Old Conyers Road. This is a site plan of the subject property. So you have Old Conyers here, and the subject property has frontage on Old Conyers. This is the lake. This is the existing house. This is actually the shared driveway, which provides access to a rear parcel. The applicant has stated that they do not wish to change the subject property in any substantial way. As a matter of fact, as a bed and breakfast, they wish for it to remain residential in character. However, because the City of Stockbridge zoning code does not specifically treat and provide for a bed and breakfast, we had to go a different way. And so the closest use that we could find was for hotel. So the request is for C3, for bed and breakfast as a type of hotel, and hotel requires C3 as a permitted use. So staff has evaluated the request, and the evaluation is in your staff report, in your exhibit books. And what I intended to do as part of my recommendation was to limit the impact on the area to the greatest extent that the city could accomplish. And so staff recommends approval with the 6 conditions, and probably the most substantial condition is that while every C1 and C2 use would be allowed, the only C3 type use would be for bed and breakfast as a type of hotel.
Okay, do you have any questions for the staff at this time? Okay, Ms. Green, you have anything?
No, I was thinking.
Okay. You're thinking out loud. I can hear it over here. Okay, we'll ask the applicant to please come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Anita Johnson. Good evening, first
Good
of all.
evening.
My name is Anita Johnson. My address is 170 Palisade Point Drive, Ellenwood, Georgia.
Okay. You have anything you'd like to add to staff's comments?
Yes. Only add that my purpose for the property is I am not the owner of the property. I intend to lease the property for the owner on behalf of my business, JS Venue Plus. And I'd like to read, Ashley, because I'm a little nervous in presenting to you, what our purpose is for the property, which Mr. Stacy has so eloquently explained. Open since 2003, JS Venue Plus is an event facility that offers an all-inclusive solution to events large and small, and a traditional retail travel agency that specializes in prepackaged travel, both domestic and internationally. We are currently located in the city of Morrow. It is our intent to use this property, 112 Old Conyers Road in Stockbridge, primarily as a bed and breakfast, owner-occupied, offering an alternative form of lodging for visitors who prefer a residential setting. We intend to preserve the character of the neighborhood and to maintain both the residential neighborhood experience and the bed and breakfast experience. Residents of the bed and breakfast will have use of the grounds as well as an added amenity for both recreational and social activities. Our mission, JS Venue Plus mission that is to provide healthy and wholesome fellowship through offering recreational and leisure services at a reasonable price. Fellowship that will enrich relationships, fortify faith, and cultivate community. We believe this property will help us accomplish our mission by extending the opportunity for others to experience the natural God-given beauty of this property through a bed and breakfast experience. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll ask if any of the board members have any questions for the applicant. Ms. Green.
You mentioned primary use as a bed and breakfast. What are the secondary, tertiary uses, other uses?
No, well, when I say primary, I mean the additional use of the grounds by the residents of the bed and breakfast for recreational and social events.
Okay. And this may be a question for staff, but did I read that there may be some use of the property for wedding ceremonies, not receptions, but ceremonies?
Correct.
Are there size limitations to the wedding parties?
Very much so. The weddings actually will be a part of the social activities that is permitted to the residents of the bed and breakfasts. So the guests, of course, attending the bed and breakfast will be attending on behalf of the bed and breakfast resident. The size will be no more than 150 guests. and they will come to the grounds only to attend, rather, the ceremony. So only 2 to 3 hours on the property.
2 to 3 hours on the property. And if I understood correctly, there shouldn't be parking challenges because they will be bussed in?
That is correct. They will be bused, dropped off to walk the grounds to the back portion of the property, which is very closely located to the lake, to be there for the ceremony, and will be bused back. And they will be bused back to and from our existing location in Morrow, which is also where the reception will be held.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have a question, and it could be for staff, I'm not really sure. But a lot of the weddings, it all depends on who's getting married. I understand that. Maybe serving alcohol. So with this facility, I'm not sure about the restrictions for bed and breakfast and alcohol license and things like that. Is that something that you foresee would happen there at that facility? Serving of liquor?
For weddings?
For the reception, or
No.
for the visitors that are attending there, will there be like an open bar?
No, not for the ceremony. Typically, alcohol is not available during the ceremony, only during the reception.
Which
So-
will not be there?
Which will not
It'll
be
at a
on
different
property.
location.
Correct.
Okay. So there will not be any alcoholic beverages being served at that facility?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, then you may be seated.
Thank you.
This time, we're gonna allow 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor of the case. Okay, we're gonna allow then 10 minutes for those who want to speak in opposition of the case. All right, if I could ask the applicant to please come forward again, in case there's any other questions that we might want to ask. I would like to kind of get back to the parking situation. So what I heard you say was everyone meets at the Morrow location and then they're bused to this location.
Correct.
And then they're bused back to, okay, so that's how it's gonna be. Well,
Yes.
that's only when there's there's weddings.
Correct.
But when there are when there are folks that are staying there, is there enough parking for it? Because it's set up to 6 bedrooms, I think, was in the,
Up to 6 bedroom will be the limit, I understand, but the property actually has 4 bedrooms. And we
Okay.
currently have 5 parking spaces.
so, okay, that's what I wanted to find, just how many parking spaces you actually had there at that
Yes.
facility. Do they already exist?
Yes,
Okay. And that's from, I thought it was a residence. Was that from?
it is.
Okay. But they already have existing?
Yes,
Is it paved?
yes,
Okay, so it's already paved and marked and everything?
yes.
Okay. I guess a question for staff would be, do they have to have a handicap space or anything like that? And is it in compliance?
It's-
Applicant, do you have handicap parking?
We can certainly designate one of the parking areas as handicap if need be.
And is the bread and breakfast, is it handicapped accessible?
Yes, we believe it is.
Okay.
So-
Stacy, go ahead.
Yes, the facility would be considered a commercial location, and it would need to meet all the standards of a commercial location, including requiring the handicapped accessibility as well as handicapped parking spaces to meet the City of Stockbridge Code and also the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. The location will be required to have the minimum number of parking spaces, which at 4 bedrooms, it may very well meet that. The city, subject to the city's provisions in their zoning code, there may be some ability to approve a shared parking arrangement, but otherwise, the required parking will need to be provided on site. And it may very well be that it will meet that at this time.
Okay. That was just,
Based on that, I have a question.
Mr. Nelson, okay?
Yes, based on that, Stacy, I have a question for the applicant now. Now, have you checked with the city to ensure that you meet all the requirements for the C3 or the bed and breakfast?
To the best of my ability, yes. I've met extensively with Mr. Hall, with the City of Stockbridge, and Mr. Stacy. And we've done our due diligence to ensure that we could be in compliance. However, a major part of the confusion was the whole issue that you've heard before this case, which was the development conditions that were in place.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant or staff before we call the case? All right, you may be seated. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, please call the case.
Case number RZ-16-19-S. Marvin Johnson of Stockbridge, Georgia, requests a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to C3 Highway Commercial for property located at 112 Old Conyers Road in land lot 68 of the 12th District. The property consists of 3.734 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a bed and breakfast. The property is located in the city of Stockbridge and was presented by Mr. Stacy Jordan Rudisill.
Okay, do I have a motion for this case?
Yes, thank you. I make a motion to approve case RZ-16-19-S with staff recommendations.
Okay, do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second by Mr. Risher. All of those in favor indicating, any discussion? Sorry. All those in favor indicating by raising your hand. Motion carried. Okay, thank you, Stacy. Next case, please.
Case number RZ-16-16. The Reservoir Group of Athens, Georgia requests a rezoning from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Single Family Residential for the property located at the intersection of Kellytown Woods Drive and Kellytown Road, sitting south of Kellytown Road in land lot 72 of the 11th District. The property consists of 88.3 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. It's located in District 4, and it will be presented by Dante Gibbs.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. The applicant for this case is requesting to rezone 88.3 plus or minus acres from R1 single-family residence to R2, which is also single-family residence, for the purpose of constructing a single-family residential subdivision. The map on the overhead that's before you is a conceptual site plan showing the proposed 17.8 open space, 17.8 acres of open space toward the center of the development. The rezoning from R1 to R2 would require a minimum of a 30,000 square foot lot. However, the applicant is proposing a net density of 0.99 units per acre. That 0.99 net density units per acre will meet the intent of our comprehensive land use plan for the future land use of this property, which is designated rural residential. Even though our technical definition in our comprehensive land use plan does not include R2 as one of the zonings for rural residential, the proposed net density does meet the 1 unit per acre maximum for the future land use designation of this property. And with that said, staff recommends approval with 9 conditions that are in your ZAB books, and I will be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay. We've heard from staff. Does the board have any questions for staff?
I do.
Okay.
Dante, sorry, Mr. Gibbs, I didn't mean to be so informal. One of the conditions, of the conditions that were listed, it didn't list the intent to make it 0.99 units per acre. Should that be a part of the conditions to make sure that that is applicable when they do develop the property?
The zoning advisory board can consider that as a condition, but per their proposed development, they are saying that the net density will be 0.99. But if you want to make sure that the condition is that they do not go any larger than 1 acre, a 1 acre lot, then that could be something that you can consider.
Okay, and I did receive something from a citizen.
I'm sorry, no less than 1 acre. I apologize. I meant
Less than
no
whatever,
less
but
than 1 acre.
0.99. Okay. So I did receive something from a citizen with opposition, and I actually heard from two different sources that they felt that there were going to be duplexes put in on this property. So would we have to have a condition that says that no duplexes or apartments would be built on this site, or how does that work?
Our R2 zoning does not permit duplexes or apartment units. They would have to rezone it to a zoning, which in our case would be RM, multifamily, to permit that type of development.
Okay, so R2 does not permit duplexes, so that kind of negates that.
Single-family residence.
That suggestion, okay. And and it's also, I believe, I mean, I can ask the applicant this, their suggestion of the heated floor space going from 2,600 to 2,900 square foot. Could I ask that be a condition also?
Yes, you could pose that question to the applicant to see if they're agreeable to a minimum square footage on the heated square footage of the homes.
Okay, and on condition number 5, all yards shall be fully sodded. And I know sometimes when it's almost an acre to sod a whole acre, sometimes, might be a burden, for the developer and as far as cost and everything. But we definitely need it to be stabilized, and I don't want to get away from that. But I don't want trees being torn down to accommodate the sod, if that makes sense. So, how would we accommodate wanting it to be sodded appropriately where it's stabilized, but yet preserving the natural vegetation that would be there that wouldn't be disturbed?
The intent of the condition that states all yards shall be fully sodded is to stabilize the disturbed soil. So all portions of the front side and rear yards that are disturbed, that there's actual land activity that takes place, should be restabilized with sod. That's the intent of that condition.
Okay. Should that condition be changed to reflect that, or was that?
For clarity, I would have no objection to that.
For soil stabilization for the area that has been disturbed.
Yes, along those lines.
I don't want to limit to front, side, back in case there's other, parcels of the land that might be disturbed that they wouldn't put sod there.
All portions of the yard that is disturbed shall be sodded.
Because it said all yards shall be fully sodded, so I just don't want to leave anything out. Okay.
Sure.
I think that is, okay, and then also, in number 2, can I request that, that we would have, side entrance, garages? For,
When we make that a condition, in most cases, we state where feasible, just because of sometimes lots are not perfectly shaped to accommodate a side entry garage. So if that be the case and that be a condition that you recommend, I would ask that you add at the end of it where feasible.
okay, should I add that to condition number 2? All lots shall front interior to the subdivision with side entrance garages where feasible, or does that change that sentence? Should it stand alone? I don't want to change the lot shall have front interior. Is that worded correctly, number 2?
You should probably include that with the minimum house size.
Okay, I will do that. All right, that's all I had, and sorry I belabored
No, that's fine.
staff with those questions.
Does the board have any additional questions for staff? Okay, Mr. Rich?
Yes, I believe you said that back in, I think it was 2007, that the commissioners granted a R1 zoning rather than, R2 as requested. Do you recall what the recommendation of this board was at that time?
I would have to check the minutes to see exactly what the ZAB at that time, what their discussion was.
Okay, and then the 0.99 density, now that's a net density?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I had for now.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay. At this time, we'd like the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore, Moore-Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia. And I am here tonight representing the Reservoir Group, who's the applicant for this rezoning request before you tonight. As Dante said, we have approximately 88 acres located on Kellytown Road, directly across from Kellytown Woods subdivision. It is currently zoned R1. We're requesting R2 for the development of a 77-lot subdivision. If I could, I'm going to share with you just a rendered version of this same site plan. So during the planning process, since we were delivered an R1, a piece of property was already zoned R1, we did look at a lot of the plans that were presented as part of that R1 rezoning. And after reviewing it, we really just noticed that there was a lot of not great things associated with that plan. There was several creek crossings that were proposed. All of the roads were kind of runway-esque, long straight cul-de-sacs, very little character, a lot of environmental impact, no preservation of any open space, would require clearing of a lot of areas that should be protected with buffers and that's type. No real attention to the topography that's out there, and again, any of the good, natural character that exists on that property. So we took a different approach, and that's what this layout is here. Rather than crossing the creek, 5 times, we chose to back lots up to those creeks. We've provided buffers along those creeks and have avoided all but one creek crossing. And hopefully you'll agree that from an environmental standpoint, that's a much better design. And from the county's maintenance of roads, it's a whole lot better design. I'm sure David could attest to that. So we took those areas that were around those creeks and we set it aside as open space. As Dante mentioned earlier, approximately 18 acres of open space. That open space will be owned and maintained by the Homeowners Association. We then took property that was adjacent to that open space area that otherwise could have been developed lots and chose to further incorporate that into the open space area. So it's not all just creeks and just low areas. It is buildable, developable property that provides connectivity to the roadway network within the development. So the result is 77 lots that range from nearly 3/4 of an acre, some over an acre in size, and then the 18 acres of open space. And we're basically taking a slight decrease in the size of the lot, taking that area, putting it in open space, and in an area that can be accessed by all the residents in the community. That again protects the environmental features on this property and provides some green areas and open space for the residents to use. We think that there's other benefits to just adding lots to this property by zoning it. One of those benefits comes in with the change from R1 to R2. The lot width narrows. When the lot widths are narrower, it's much easier for the homeowners to maintain. As you're driving down the road, you're not looking at a house and a section directly in front of the house that's maintained, and then a bunch of tall weeds that nobody wants to cut, and then the next house with its yard maintained. When you push these things a little bit closer together, and it's not a lot closer, but it is a little bit, it'd be 50 feet between 2 lots, it's 25 feet less. You give the homeowner a whole lot easier chance of doing a good job of maintaining that and creating this very cohesive, nice curb appeal as you're driving through this community, and not a bunch of patches of unmaintained landscape. A couple of key features with this community: mandatory homeowners association. Again, 18 acres of open space. We have a 25-foot landscape buffer we're proposing along Kellytown Road and along Pleasant Grove Road. Centralized mailboxes, whether it's amenity or not, it's a requirement, and we will provide that per the U.S. Postal Service. The applicant is proposing an increase from the previous zoning condition of 2,600 to 2,900 square feet of heated space. These homes are proposed as craftsman-style homes with sodded yards, sidewalks on both sides of the street. And the developer and the builder in this community are one and the same. And I wanted to touch on that for a second because that's a rarity in my business. Most of the time that we are hired to represent a zoning case, we're hired by either the developer or the landowner. And their sole purpose is cram as many lots as you can on here. I don't care what they look like. Get me as many as I can because I'm going to go sell them to, if it's a landowner, I'm going to go sell it to a developer, and that developer is going to sell it to a builder. Or if it's the developer, he's going to sell it to a builder or builder group. And so this is a different situation. We have the developer and the builder that's one and the same, and I can assure you that these guys are going to be engaged in the process from the initial land plans that are prepared, through construction plans, through the development of the subdivision, through the final plat, through the building permit, all the way to a CO. I mean, these guys have a vested interest in this thing from soup to nuts, and they're going to be a vital part of that, and I think that's going to really bode well for this community, and that these guys are just going to have a significant amount of interest in this project from day one. Again, the houses are proposed as craftsman-style homes. If you care to see houses, I have some photos of representative examples of the houses. They are right now building similar products in a subdivision called Evergreen, which is just west of this site. Same zoning, same builder, same types of homes. I would invite you to swing by the model home there and take a look at it, to look at the quality of the craftsmanship of these homes. As Dante mentioned again, we are compliant with the rural residential section of the land use plan. And we believe that this development is going to have a minimal impact on the adjacent land uses. We have a zoning, I got another exhibit I'll share with you that just gives you an idea of the context of the area. As you can see, our property is right in the middle. We have Kellytown Woods to the north that's zoned R2, Brook Hollow to the south that's R2, Watkins Glen to the east, and Evergreen to the west, both of which are zoned R2. And I think hopefully you'll agree that this is an easy fit right between those to create that cohesive R2 area that's very compatible and very consistent with what's already been approved. We've read the original staff report. I've heard your proposed modifications and additional conditions, and we are perfectly fine with those. And at this time, I'll answer any questions that you've got.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay. We have, hold on a second, Ms. Richard. Yes.
If I could go ahead. If you go back to the original map that you had, okay, did I see, sorry, I gotta refocus here. Let's get to the entrances. I know back when it was zoned for R1, it was interesting, one entrance on Kellytown and one entrance on, I think, Pleasant Grove to allow for the emergency to get to the back side of the homes. So show me where the entrances will be at this location and why they are at that particular, why you put them there.
Okay. For the first, to answer your question, yes, the original did have one to Kellytown and an emergency access proposed to Pleasant Grove, which was required by the fire code, I guess, at that time. What the current ordinance for Henry County requires, anything over 50 lots has to have 2 permanent accesses. No opportunity for a temporary, access like before. It has to be 2 full-time permanent access. Even if we developed under the old zoning, we would still have to comply with that requirement. So we are, Kellytown Woods Parkway hits us right in the middle of our site, which is right about here. We are proposing one access here and one access here, just east and west of that. Both of those accesses provide the right amount of spacing per Henry County DOT standards, and both of them meet the intersection site distance requirements that are in your ordinance.
Do you have any, well, I know that the code says that the inside the development, the interior roads have to be sidewalked, both sides. How about the Kellytown Road? Is there a code that says that has to be sidewalk, or is that an option?
The way the code reads, it will be specific to the development. They're not developing Kellytown Road, but they are developing the lots near Kellytown Road, so it'll be specific to the actual subdivision and the sidewalks.
Okay, so there's not a proposal to put sidewalks along Kellytown Road?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm gonna clarify that. Would you be opposed, well, first of all, I look on here and I think I see 77 houses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you wouldn't be opposed if I also had a condition that said we can limit it to 77 houses?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then I also know that the ULDC code says that, I just couldn't read the sections, but that there's underground utilities and street lights. And
Yes,
so there will be underground utilities and street lights within the development. Is
Yes,
that a
ma'am.
correct
And-
statement?
And we're fine if that needs to be added as a condition, that's perfectly fine.
According to Dante, it's in the code,
Okay.
the ULDC code. I just couldn't read when it said to go to the certain sections. For some reason, it was all blurry, and I couldn't read that. I'm not an engineer, so I didn't know what it meant. I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask staff about that. So I think that's all that I had. Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Richard?
No, I think you answered my question when you brought up the entrances, so that's fine.
Do we have any additional questions from the board? I have one question. Now, you indicate 77 lots, and this is on a septic, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, has the 77 lots purged for 77 lots, or
I'm sorry, does it?
has it purged for 77 lots?
We've had a level 3 soil study done, and the 77 lots are placed in areas that will support septic tanks.
Okay, and additional question, I didn't see a letter from the school, Dante. Do we have a letter from the schools?
We received correspondence from the school board dated May 27, 2016, that stated the proposed development would generate an estimated additional 190 students for Pleasant Grove Elementary, Woodland Middle, and Woodland High School collectively. And school district annotations do not reflect a need for additional classrooms, buses, or other capital expenditures at this time.
That's all I have.
I have one other question for
Okay.
staff. On the detention, are those retention ponds or detention ponds? You know, I know there's like two different ones.
It's a good question. They'll most likely be retention ponds. They'll be wet
Okay.
ponds.
Will there be any vegetation? Is there a ULDC code for vegetation around retention ponds?
I will need to double check. Off the top of my head, I do not know,
pretty sure.
but I'll double check.
I think there's screening requirements. Seems like there are.
There usually is, but I'll confirm and get with you on that.
Because I was thinking I read somewhere, I don't know if it was in the original,
It was in the original zoning
the
conditions. There was a
original
discussion
zoning
about that.
conditions, and so I know, yes, it was zoning condition number 10 originally. There should be a 20-foot wide vegetation buffer to serve as a visual screen, oh, no, that was different, no.
I think it was number 9.
Number 9,
Well, it just said the detention ponds shall be depicted on the conceptual site plan prior
Oh,
to the
yeah,
request being
no.
heard by the Board of
yeah,
Commissioners.
and maybe I was reading it in the ULDC code, maybe I did see it there.
Typically, there is screening around detention. Usually you see things like Leland cypress around. But in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and say that, yeah, screening will be required per our current code.
Okay.
But just because I haven't memorized it, I would rather take a double check and let you know.
Okay, and I was trying to look for it too, and like I said, I saw it somewhere, and that's why I was like, okay, should we have it in there as a condition or not? So I'll go with you on that. We should be good.
Okay.
And I'll
And
apologize.
if I could say one more thing too,
Okay.
in regards to your question about the letter from the school, just to make sure you know that, I guess that already, the school board would have already taken the previous zoning into consideration in their future growth plans. So it's not as if we're starting from scratch and adding 77 lots. It was already zoned, and there were already considerations made for that as far as the schools are concerned within the last 9 years or however long it's been since this was originally zoned. So,
Yeah, but over the 9 years, that would have changed. We would have had to have, at this point, you would need an additional letter from the school. Am I correct, Dante?
Correct.
And which we did.
And the letter we received is updated.
Oh, okay, right.
it just didn't take into consideration that those original 60 or 70 lots were ever developed. I mean, it didn't take into consideration the fact that they weren't developed. So this assumed that you started from 0 and went to 77.
Understood. Right. Okay. All right. At this time, you may be seated, sir. At this time, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for those speaking in favor of the case. 10 minutes for anyone that would like to speak in favor of the case. Okay, I don't see anyone coming forward. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone speaking in opposition of the case. Anyone have any opposition? Please come forward. Okay.
I don't have a card, is that okay?
We have cards you can fill out, ma'am.
Scarlett Nachenko, and I live on Pleasant Grove Road, 550 Pleasant Grove Road. I have seen where they have cleared this land off. There is a place where they can get into the property off of Pleasant Grove. Pleasant Grove Road is a tiny road. So, my question is, if you're sure you're gonna do it off of Kellytown,
Well, let me ask you to do something.
Okay.
If you're speaking to the board, speak to the board
Okay.
here, and it's your chance to speak to us, and when you turn to
Okay,
them-
okay. All right, but as long as they're making sure it's come off of Kellytown, that's fine. But Pleasant Grove Road is too small for any more traffic than what it's already got. And anybody that's been down Pleasant Grove and it's a dead-end road knows this. I mean, the bus drivers have a heck of a time getting through there. You can't pass on Pleasant Grove Road. So, and another question I have, there are so many subdivisions in this county that nobody, they're just gone to weeds. So why are they taking good woods like this and not finishing the subdivisions they've already started? Instead of doing this. Why are they starting new subdivisions all over the place when there are so many that are started and nobody's doing anything with them? And I know y'all have all seen them. So as long as they make sure, I guess, this is all going to end up on Kellytown, on Pleasant Grove, I guess it will go through, because I know voices like mine don't really matter. Okay?
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition of the case? If there is no one else coming forward, we'd like the applicant to come back forward, please. Does the board have any additional questions for the applicant?
I do.
Okay.
Given we have heard opposition
Yes, ma'am.
to the case, and so I would like to ask you, and I know probably the reason you can't develop a subdivision that's already developed and maybe has gone defunct is you don't own it.
Right.
Okay, so that's not your responsibility, but it's a valid concern of the citizens of Henry County that there are subdivisions that have gone defunct. And I'm hoping that this zoning board, we can look at those things, and because a lot of times the county has to pick up where, you know, developments have gone under and they have to go in and repair streets and fill in swimming pools and things like that, and it's, you know, it costs the taxpayers money. So I notice you have a mandatory homeowners association to maintain the open spaces. Is there going to be any pools or any other amenities? I didn't see anything on the plans for that.
No, ma'am, other than the natural passive recreation that we're proposing, there's no constructed amenities per se.
Okay. And so on those detention ponds, so they would be responsible for the cleanup and the maintenance of that, and not the county?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, the county now requires, with every detention pond, a stormwater maintenance agreement that makes that responsibility on the owner, who ultimately would convey it to the HOA, to be that management person in perpetuity, as long as those ponds are there.
Right. And to get back to the concern about the entrances being on,
ma'am.
both of the entrances on Kellytown Road and not on Pleasant Grove, I didn't see that on the plans, but should I put that as a condition?
I think it's
or-
already there. Condition number 7, staff's recommendations, under their original
It is.
conditions. There shall be no access easements from lots within Tract 1 of the boundary survey where adjoining Pleasant Grove Road or Kellytown Road.
Okay.
And so the intent behind that is that there will be an easement recorded along the frontage of Pleasant Grove Road that will be dedicated as a no-access easement, which prohibits anybody, resident or public street, from using that as an access point.
I just want to make sure that we address all the concerns that were brought forward.
Certainly.
And, you know, and I want the citizens to, you know, to feel like they have a voice.
Absolutely.
And that they are being heard, you know, especially by developers and this board. So I want to always address
Yeah.
those
And
concerns and situations.
And as to your question about, you know, why here and why not in some of these others? And like you said, you have a very valid point that, you know, you can't develop what you don't own. But I will say, totally unrelated to this application, that over the last 3 or 4 years, our business has been taking these subdivisions, everybody calls them pipe farms, the old subdivision with pipes sticking out of the ground, and rehabbing them and getting the plans cleaned up and the property cleaned up so that they could go back on the market to sell to users. And a lot of them are getting bought up. I mean, we've recorded probably 10 plats this year of old subdivisions that just never got finished, and they're finished and they're sold and they're building houses out there. You know, they are going away, but you know, there are some left.
Well, I did ask the question.
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
appreciate you
And that's-
clarifying that for me. I have nothing else that can.
I want to ask Dave a question. Is that gonna be desale lanes put in on Kellytown Road?
Yes, sir. It should be one of the conditions, even if it's not, it's in the code that they have to do a decel lane on a road like Kellytown Road. So,
It is condition number 6.
yes. Yeah, they'll have the right turn lanes at each entrance on Kellytown Road for access into the site.
Any additional questions? Any other board member? Okay, at this time, you may be seated, sir.
Yes, sir.
At this time, we'd like to call the case.
Case number RZ-16-16, the Reservoir Group of Athens, Georgia requested rezoning from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Single Family Residential for the property located at the intersection of Kellytown Woods Drive and Kellytown Road, sitting south of Kellytown Road, and land lot 72 of the 11th District. The property consists of 88.3 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. It's located in District 4, and it was presented by Dante Gibbs.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve RZ 16-16 with 9 conditions and 3 new conditions, with condition number 5 revised to read, all yards shall be fully sodded for stabilization of soil that has been disturbed. The 3 new ones, the first one would be a minimum lot size of 0.99 units per acre, limited to 77 houses. Number 2, the minimum house size shall be 2,900 square feet of heated floor space. And the third new condition, each house shall have a side entry 2-car garage where feasible.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Richard. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Madam Chair, I apologize for Mr. Chair, for the record, the 0.99 is the net density units per acre, not the lot size.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so how should that read?
Just 0.99 net density units
0.99
net
density unit
per acre.
for the additional number 1. So if that's for the record, thank you. I just wrote it down wrong.
No
So
problem.
we have a amended motion. It's been seconded by Mr. Richard. All those in favor? Motion carries. Back on you.
Okay. That's all of the cases we have for this evening. Motion to adjourn. So moved. Okay.
All right.
We're adjourned.